In addition to getting antivenom, should that be available to you, you're also going to need probably a total blood transfusion. Well, hi there. Welcome to South Africa. I'm here with my friend Justin and this incredible but terrifying snake, the boomslang. Did I say that right?
You said that right.
Because boomslang is an Afrikaans word.
That's right.
And I don't speak Afrikaans. Will you tell us a little bit about what it means?
Okay, so Afrikaans is a language in Southern Africa now, but it was originally like a Dutch dialect that came in with the early travelers in the world. So boom, B-O-O-M, boom stands for tree, and then slang means snake. So we don't call them tree snakes here. Even me as an English-speaking South African, I don't call it a tree snake. We call it a boomslang.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is a tree snake. It's also possibly the scariest colubrid snake in the world. So this one is a young, probable male boomslang, which you can tell the difference just by looking at them, because when they reach maturity, they experience what's called an ontogenic color shift, and they go, well, from a coloration like this to maybe one of two different variants, one of them being a more drab, often kind of a brown color, those would be the females, or with brighter greens and bands, those tend to be the males. But obviously, if you're here, it's because you're curious if the boomslang is a good pet, and if it's the right pet for you. And in order to help you figure that out, we've decided to give the boomslang a score based on our 5 categories, which are handleability, care, hardiness, availability, and upfront costs. When it comes to handleability, we give the boomslang a score of 0 out of 5, which is crazy for a colubrid, but I think it'll make a lot of sense here in a second. This is an animal that is not impossible to handle, as we're going to show you here shortly, but it is exceedingly difficult. I would say that these guys and mambas are 2 of the snakes that I find the most intimidating to attempt to interact with of all snakes. Drop for drop, these guys have one of the deadliest venoms in the world. And drop for drop is very important because this is a very, very bad bite. You do not want one. You can easily die, and you will die badly. I'll explain that here in a second. But this is a rear-fanged venomous snake. Being a colubrid, it doesn't have hollow hypodermic fangs like you would find on an elapid snake or a viper, where they have big venom glands and they pump the venom through the fangs directly into the wound. In this case, they've got very large teeth near the back of their mouth, which sometimes people tell you they have to chew on you. Keep in mind, this snake can open its jaws 170 degrees,
yeah.
So it can basically punch you with these fangs. The fangs have little grooves down them, and the venom itself is in their saliva, and so when they bite into you, that opens a big wound. They've got channels, so it will drain down the channels in these rear fangs, and you're going to get some amount of it into your wound. The amount can vary, and it can matter a great deal. They're not going to pump as much into you as they would if they were a viper or an elapid, but drop for drop, it's going to be much, much worse. So they have a much more potent venom, but you're likely to get less of it. This is a hemotoxic venom, which means it affects primarily blood coagulation. In some cases, this means that your blood won't clot. In some cases, it means that your blood is going to be clotting all over the place. You're going to have all sorts of horrible bleeding, probably from your nose, your eyes. Internal organs are going to be bleeding. This is what's going to kill you. And one of the crazy things about it is the effects don't begin right away. Because of this, sometimes people who have been envenomated by a boomslang think that they're going to be okay. They don't think that they've gotten a significant amount of venom, and it's a few hours later when the effects kick in. And unfortunately, in many cases, they haven't sought medical attention during those several hours because the effects weren't immediate. Mm-hmm. There is such a thing as an antivenom that they have for the boomslang. It's probably available here in South Africa, though I know that they're having an antivenom shortage at the moment.
That is right, Clint. That is very scary. So the antivenin is a monovalent. So this is specifically for boomslang.
Yep. And so if your local hospital doesn't have it, which it's very likely to not have it. In fact, unless you're in the native range of the boomslang, it's basically a guarantee that they will not have it. Your polyvalent antivenoms, which work on a wide range of different snake venoms, probably not going to help you. In addition to getting antivenom, should that be available to you, you're also going to need probably a total blood transfusion, which means they're going to need to replace all of your blood with someone else's blood. So
hopefully there's 2 liters or 3 liters of blood
yes,
somewhere.
in your blood type. So maybe know your blood type when you go in. Or maybe at least know it before you even get a boomslang.
The venom of the boomslang is somewhat of, you can consider it a liquid Ebola.
Have you ever been around anybody or met anyone who's experienced it?
I've met one person that this was quite a unique case where the guy was in the reserves out here in Southern Africa, bird watching, and he felt something scratching his leg. So, I mean, we do have small shrubs and things that scratch you as you go through the vegetation. So the first thought, he thought, no, something like that. And then he kept watching his birds, and when he actually looked down, this male boomslang was chewing on his calf. So luckily, this individual is kind of a snake savvy. He was aware of what has bitten him, and he got the adequate medical attention within the appropriate time period. Because general rule of thumb is about 48 hours before symptoms express itself. And as you've just mentioned, Clint, that's a little bit too late.
Yes.
Time is tissue, and you've lost 48 hours of tissue now. Well, hemoglobin, blood kind of tissues, components. So, as you mentioned, he went through a blood transfusion in a hospital, and I think it took him about 3 to 4 weeks before he was actually dismissed.
Wow.
And what made the bite unique was that the snake was on the ground, because the snake is not typically found on the ground, unless it's crossing from one tree to the next, but they're very flighty, just like most colubrids. They're quick to move off. But yeah, this actually got him.
This is a highly arboreal snake.
Yeah.
And one nice thing, generally speaking, is they're not particularly inclined to bite. They're very quick and darty. They want to flee. It's usually not unless you're trying to handle the snake or harm the snake that they're going to come after you in the wild. That said, if you've got them trapped in a box, say, it can be a whole other ballgame. Like I said, we are going to show you what it is like interacting with this snake here in a moment, because this snake, which you've had for a year now?
Yeah, she came to me. I removed the snake from an accommodation close to where I stay. Very emaciated animal, and she had some damage because, as we know, the general public of the world don't really appreciate boomslangs around. So, unfortunately, people had injured this individual. We were in the middle of our winter, which in Southern Africa is anywhere from about May to, let's say, the end of August, with cool temperatures. Not a lot of kind of rodent or small bird activity then. So the snake's natural prey kind of phases out in that time of year, and it comes back into our summer, or what we call the growing season with regards to vegetation. Because that smaller food web becomes active, from the insects to the rodents, all the way up chameleons, for an example. One of the boomslang's very favorite prey. And it's incredible, hey, they see that animal when it is static. So they see stationary boomslangs with that binocular vision that they've got.
They've got huge eyes.
Yeah, very characteristic.
Absolutely. So we are going to be releasing that snake here
it's time
shortly.
For her to go.
And we'll show that to you here in a moment.
Yeah.
When it comes to care, we give the boomslang a score of 2 out of 5. Now, in most ways, this care is not that exceptional or difficult at all. The care is not that unusual.
Yeah, it's not rocket science for the snake.
No, they need a very large enclosure, very tall and very wide with a lot of area to climb.
Yeah.
It needs to be well ventilated. That's going to be really important. They actually need it to stay relatively dry, but you need to be misting the enclosure fairly regularly, because some of them will only drink droplets off of the side. Because this is an arboreal snake, they're usually not coming down to puddles and pools. Some will drink out of a water bowl, but many are going to require you to mist the enclosure regularly. But if it gets too wet, that can lead to respiratory issues. As far as heat goes, they don't need it excessively hot. Pretty normal snake temperatures. Just make sure that there's a decent gradient, areas where they can be warm and areas where they can be considerably cooler. When it comes to feeding, in the wild, like Justin already explained, they eat a lot of chameleons and they eat a lot of birds.
That's right.
Probably chameleons are not going to be a reasonable food source. They do like lizards in general, so if you're okay feeding them lizards, they will gladly take lizards. They may take birds. It's my understanding they usually want the birds. Say you use a frozen thawed chick, which is one of the more available options. Quail would be another. They want it to not only be warm, but also dry. So if it's wet from, say, thawing it in a bucket, they're likely to reject that until it dries out. Then they'll probably take it with gusto. Many people have also had success scenting rodent feeders, like probably mice generally, but also potentially rats. Though these guys don't really get big enough to be eating rats of any real size.
Maybe a small rat or medium rat maximum.
Mm-hmm.
What works well with them as well is rat pinks, because it's like a fledgling bird or a little rodent nest somewhere.
The big thing that makes this snake very difficult is that it's in a fairly small area and you're going to need to work in that area. Anytime you need to clean the enclosure, anytime you need to clean a water bowl, anytime you need to feed them, all of this sort of maintenance, typical snake care, is going to require you to go into an area with a boomslang. And it's very, very likely that you could be bitten if you do this badly. In fact, it is oftentimes when people are doing care for animals that they get a little bit more careless. When they're handling them, they tend to be very focused on the animal and how it's behaving. A lot of the people that I've known that have taken venomous snake bites have taken them when they're cleaning the enclosures, when they're taking care of the animals. Not to mention the fact that colubrids are very good at escaping.
Yeah, very active in this boomslang.
And this is not an animal that you want to have escape in your house. Who knows where it will be? It will be up high. I can virtually promise you that. It'll be up in the curtains. You don't want to discover this when you go to open your window. That's a very, very bad thing to have happen. In general, probably the best thing you can do is have a trap box in the enclosure. It's the same sort of thing I recommend for a king cobra or a mamba, anything like that, which is a box that the snake will go in and use as a hide. You can often kind of herd it in there, and then you can close it and lock it up, and that way the snake can feel safe and it can be out of the habitat, essentially, while you're in there. That'll keep you from needing to handle the snake on a regular basis, because handling is extremely dangerous and you should probably avoid it whenever that is reasonably possible. So a trap box is a very, very smart way to go if you're going to keep a boomslang. When it comes to hardiness, we give the boomslang a score of 5 out of 5. And I just wanted to ask you about this. You were telling me earlier they're pretty much rock solid. I mean, this one was wild caught. Of course, it didn't have to go through the stresses that most wild caught imports go through. But it was wild caught, injured, emaciated, in a really bad situation. Now it's doing great.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
So the story with this individual, Clint, is, as we mentioned, she was kind of harassed and hurt by people. Bad time of year, and she was on a slippery slope downward. So how I approached it is, with reptiles, as I'm sure you're aware, less is more. Stressor kills these animals quite a bit. So initially I just focused on giving the snake, because it was our winter period, a warm, secure place to de-stress and hydrate. I started there. I didn't offer any food for about a week whilst she was kind of, lack for a better word, getting used to or acclimating to being in an enclosure. And then what I started to do was, so how I set up the enclosure is lots of branches because they're arboreal. I don't know if you guys have seen little finch nesting boxes you can buy in a pet shop with like a swing door, thin little wood thing with like a hole cut in it. So I put one on either side, so 2 in total, one on the warm side and one on the cold side of the enclosure, because that, for us in the wild here, it mimics holes in trees. And that's where we find a lot of boomslang in winter coming out to bask. So I thought, let me give the snake something it might be familiar with, which, a great escape and a secure place. Not a very big box, because I felt that at that stage the snake needed to feel kind of corners securing it, so it can feel the edges and say, okay, I'm all tucked away, I'm all right here, because she went through a bit of an ordeal. So a few days after her being in my care now, I started to notice in the morning, so I've got a light in my enclosure, so I sync it with our daylight hours, so the circadian rhythms of the boomslang are in sync. So no added heat, because we're in Southern Africa, they occur here naturally, so she just had a light. So the temperatures will drop in the evening to quite a cool temperature, and then it will kick up again when I put the light in as our day heats up naturally. And then that boomslang will come out and bask and then just retreat into the hide. How I began to offer it food, because as you can see, I live quite remotely. So I don't have the privilege of going to pet stores to buy feeders regularly. So I buy all my rodents in bulk, frozen thawed, and now I've got this wild boomslang that's an active hunter, you know,
Yes.
so I need to now convince this animal. So what I used to do is I'd kind of imitate as if this rodent is moving. I started off with a pink rat, so it kind of looks like a fledgling mammal or maybe a fledgling bird without any feathers on. And I started just kind of wiggling this thing, and obviously the snake bolted into the hide because it's frightened of me. And then I thought, you know what, I'm just going to hang this on the branch directly outside its hide. I just put it there and I thought, let me walk away. I went and made a cup of coffee and did a bunch of other things. And when I came back to inspect the snake, it actually had eaten this thing. So first I thought, no, hang on here. How does this frozen thawed rodent disappear? It can't walk, you know? So then I didn't want to harass the snake in the hide box now. So a few days later, I tried again, but I put it a little bit further away. So same thing, introduced it to the snake in the hide, let it kind of like poke around as if it's, you know, a wild rodent, nothing there, and moved on. I'm assuming the visual cue picked up the interest, and maybe the forked tongue with a Jacobson's organ kind of sealed the deal. And then this boomslang actually came out and started to take the rodents a little bit further away from her hide, or his hide. After that, I would say maybe 3 weeks after that, the snake built up much more confidence. I'm assuming that the nutrients of these meals are also making it feel a little better, hydrated, also doing its thing. And I got 3 meals in it, and then it went into a shed cycle because of that injury, I assume.
Yes.
Because it had a small laceration. And waited for it to shed. We're privileged here. We don't need to worry about humidities and solid sheds. It happens for us quite okay. And so then the snake shed perfectly. And after that shed, it was like night and day. Now this individual kind of switched on. It was basking and lying in the branches, and it wasn't so frightened of me approaching in my snake room. Mm-hmm. So it actually tolerated the presence. And in typical boomslang fashion, much like owls, they kind of like wiggle their head like this.
Yeah, for depth perception.
Yeah, get that triangulation going on. And then it would just kind of do that as I was walking around my room. And then some of the pythons or the mamba in my area, some of the pythons and the mambas in that area, then the snake would lock onto their movement. And slowly but surely she built up this, we think it's he, built up this confidence to the extent that when I was feeding my other snakes, you know, I'm sure you know what it's like when it's feeding day. Everybody knows it's time for food. Then this boomslang would be pacing the enclosure, pacing. He knows his rodent's coming or her rodent's coming, but it's a matter of when. So being an active hunter, it was quite high up because I felt also, that's something I forgot to mention, I put it in a high up enclosure so it would simulate a tree canopy so that the snake is looking down on me.
That's a very good way to do it.
Also close to a window because of the daylight hours. I thought that was a good thing. And so the snake was always above me, so to a degree. So it always had the advantage, I felt. Mm-hmm. So, you know, they kind of look down their noses at you when they're like that, you know.
Many snakes, especially arboreal snakes, feel much more at ease looking down on something. They feel like they're in control of the situation. They're not in danger. Yeah.
So this is exactly what she was expressing, or he was expressing. So when I would open my terrariums are wooden terrariums with a sliding glass front. And when I unlocked the thing and offered the rodents, yes, it was like grease lightning. They just came in. And as you said earlier, they opened their mouth extremely wide. And that snake was pumping venom into it. And I noticed that because of the chewing motion. Mm-hmm. The rodent wasn't very big, so the snake's mouth could kind of fit over it easily. And it actually even swallowed, quite a few of them didn't get the head, you know, kind of folded and swallowed the big thing down. And so I kept him for about a year. It's been close to a year and it's healed perfectly. It's built up good body mass and now it's mature. So this snake is a mature individual. And now it's time for us to release it back into the wild because big mature snakes are hard to find nowadays, and we need to look after our wild populations. So it's been a pleasure with this animal, but it needs to go back to the wild. That's where they belong.
Well, thank you so much for doing this for it. Most of the animals that you will find, most of the boomslangs that you will find available are wild caught. And not only were they caught out of the wild, they're then packaged up and shipped and go who knows how long without access to food or water, and they often are going to come in pretty rough condition. You get a snake like this, it's probably going to be in worse shape than this one was, and you're going to have to go through something like this in order to get it there. However, if you get one captive bred, which is 100% the way to do it, you're not going to have nearly this battle ahead of you. And you're also not going to be negatively impacting the wild populations. But we'll talk more about that here in a second. If you get one captive bred, though, the only thing you're really going to have to worry about is just keeping air movement good through the enclosure. Because you're misting, it can get to the point that a lot of moisture is piling up in there, and that can cause them some respiratory issues. So you want to keep it a little bit drier, not super dry, but a little bit drier, and make sure there's good ventilation. And if you do that, they seem to be pretty rock solid. I want to take just a moment to say thank you to our patrons on Patreon. Obviously, I'm here in South Africa having just the most incredible experience, one of the most incredible experiences of my entire life. We just got here last night, and we have already seen 4 of the big 5 out on safari, because that's actually how we met Justin. Justin has been our safari driver and gracious host here. And if people want to get a hold of you to do something like this themselves, how would they do that?
Okay, well, Clint, thank you very much for that opportunity. My wife and I, Saber, we've started our own tourism company. It's called outlawsafari.com, where we've got a few lodges that are actually environmental and conservation savvy that we support. So if you want to support good companies out here, we've got a bunch that we can offer for you guys. Alternatively, you can actually contact us directly on the Instagram page of this bush camp. It's called Nzuti Bush Camp. And that way you'll be chatting directly to us. We're not a big corporate organization. You're going to actually be talking to the people, the boots on the ground, you know. So as we're hearing your guys' requests or kind of things you're looking for in a safari experience, we're going to be conducting those experiences so we can help you make your dream come true, hopefully, out here. You know, it is the wild. It is unpredictable. But that's kind of the way we like it, you know, keep us guessing. So, yeah, thanks to Clint's Patreon supporters for sending him out here because, yeah, I had an opportunity to meet him and hopefully make a friend for the near future, you know? We'll hopefully stay in contact.
Absolutely. We'll have links down in the description so that you'll be able to get a hold of Justin. And if you'd like to support us on Patreon to help us to continue to create content like this, please consider checking it out. When it comes to availability, we give the Boomslang a score of 1 out of 5. And if you want a wild-caught specimen, they are available periodically from importers that I find to be generally fairly questionable. I'm sure there are good importers that are very trustworthy, but unless you happen to know one, that might be a real challenge. Every now and then, you might be able to find one that is captive bred. And if you were seriously wanting a Boomslang, that's really the only way to do it. Not only are you going to get a healthier, friendlier, less stressed animal, you're also going to not be impacting the native population here because, not that too many people want them, but if too many people want these snakes out of the wild, they can really have an impact. And we don't want to do that. They're really important in the environment here, which is why we're going to be returning this one here in just a few minutes. When it comes to upfront costs, we give the Boomslang a score of 3 out of 5. Really, the animal is not going to be very expensive at all. And because the breeders are competing with wild-caught imports for cost, and because there probably aren't that many people who legitimately are right for a Boomslang, they usually aren't charging a tremendous amount of money for the animal itself. The enclosure will be the more expensive part, and definitely not a place where you want to skimp. It needs to be large and well ventilated and secure. Extraordinarily secure. This is a snake that is very, very good at escaping, very athletic, will be up high, it's going to see you from a long way away, and so you do not want to show up at the emergency room 48 hours after a bite from a Boomslang, or even immediately after a bite from a Boomslang, because unless you're here in their native range, they are going to have no idea what to do for you. And if they know what to do for you, and even in the small, tiny chance that they have the antivenom that you're going to need, you're also going to need a blood transfusion. So expect to be in the hospital for a very long time, and that bill's not going to be cheap. And this is why, overall, we give the Boomslang a score of 2.2 out of 5, which is probably actually kind of a deceptively high score, because in a lot of ways, it's a normal colubrid. And in a few very important ways, it's not a normal colubrid at all. If what you want is an arboreal, rear-fanged, venomous, super interesting, engaging, amazing green snake, then what you're probably looking for is the Baron's Racer. However, if it needs to be one of the, well, probably the scariest colubrid on the planet, then the boomslang might be the best pet snake for you. As always, like and subscribe. We hope to see you real soon.
Boomslang coming through. Hello, good morning. Good morning. Come on. I wonder if there's a little hole he's just found.
Oh yeah, he certainly has. I think he's going to go through it. I think it's a gap.
Am I going to be in your shot over here, Clint?
No. Thank you for checking though.
Yeah, he's up top over here.
Okay, maybe you must go around, Ken.
I will.
If you can use the zoom, that would be ideal, because yeah, this is not a friendly one. My plan is to kind of put it down, and I hope it goes that way.
Warn me on distances too if I get too close. I don't think I will.
Oops, sorry, snake. So now we definitely,
Now he's really
gonna get spat on. I kept it in this holding pin and I gave it a rat, and it's destroyed this. Okay, I've been spat. It's going into the blue.
This is spitting cobra, red spitting cobra?
Mozambican.
Mozambique spitting cobra. What was the story with this one?
This one was actually going into Chris's rodent room.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah. I don't mean to harass the snake, but I'm going to roll a rock there. Maybe I can hood a little bit more. Yeah. Okay, guys, I don't mean to be a nag, but I think we need to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do it.